Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 101. A hair's breadth. Pity. Such a pity. It would have been better if Jun Moxie was killed. At least, that would have made his bastard grandfather's heart ache. Lady Heir said between gritted teeth. Hearing that Jun Moxie had unexpectedly escaped death caused her to feel extremely regretful. Under the boat, Jun Moxie was racking his brain but was at a loss as to how he had offended this Lady Heir. Judging from the bitter resentment in this young lady's voice, it sounded as if she had been violated 100 times by Jun Moxie. Lord Lu slowly pondered and said, "Now that this situation has escalated to this point, the mission to assassinate the princess will be temporarily called off. We are fortunate to have acquired the Xian beast tendons without a hitch. At this juncture, I can make arrangements for your departure from Tianxiang. As for the other issues, I'll personally report to my master and see what the old man has planned. Perhaps we may have to collaborate with your hall once again, and I'll have to inconvenience everyone to return at that time. Please send greetings to the Blood Sword Hall's Grandmaster on my behalf and tell him, although this was a failure, Heir is still grateful." His voice suddenly became very solemn when he said these last words. Apparently, this sentence was quoting the direct words of this so-called Heir. Jun Moxie was speechless as he twitched his mouth. Who doesn't know that Heir is the second prince at this point? And you still try to be so mysterious. Lord Lu, thank you for your generous words. As for our departure, we naturally have our means. We'll take our leave. The three men immediately stood up and cupped their fists. The Xian beast tendons have been given to Lady Heir for safekeeping. 30 tendons is not a small number, so we hope that we will be informed as soon as this matter is resolved. That which belongs to us, we will personally come back to retrieve." Lord Lu laughed. "No need to be polite. When you return, please ask the Grandmaster if he had given some thoughts to our request to assassinate an emperor. Regardless of his answer, please inform our side as early as possible." "Yes." The three men filed out and disappeared into the night. Lord Lu did not send them off. Lady Heir. The palace had already conducted a thorough purge after the incident with the princess, and all three sides have lost men. But this does not concern us. What's more important is that the one behind all this is most likely the eldest brother. Therefore, you need to complete your assignment we've discussed earlier as quickly as possible. In case the information leak, do your best to arrange some subordinates to get into the palace. Be vigilant and maintain only a single line of communication. Lord Lu lowered his voice and spoke urgently. "Yes. Lord Lu and Heir can rest assured. I have already made preparation a long time ago and have selected only virgin maidens." Lady Heir's gentle and beautiful voice echoed. If not for Heir's important plans, even Heir would want to go to the palace to play for a few days. Lady Heir is one of Tianxiang's top beauties. Who can resist your charms? Lord Lu laughed a while before lowering his voice once again to speak. Heir has ordered that we move forward with the plans to create crossbows out of the Xian beast tendons. They might be needed at any time, so there is not a moment to waste. Since many parties are watching our every move, it would be inconvenient for us to be personally involved. That is why we entrust you with completing this task." Lady Heir replied uneasily. "I naturally understand, but these strips of Xian beast tendons are too exceptional. Using ordinary steel would not be able to bring out the full potential of these tendons. Unfortunately, we will not be able to employ Shen Bingpu, even though his craftsmanship is unrivaled in Tianxiang, Since a tall tree attracts the wind attracts unwanted attention. Our only option is to do business with Jiangnan's famous Shao Clan Trading Company. I have already sent messengers to get in touch with them before the auction, but I have not received a response yet. The sooner this issue is resolved, the better. We are even willing to double the payment if that is what it takes. Lord Lu said cautiously. These crossbows will be crucial to us in the future. Not only has heir paid an almost prohibitive price, but he is also taking a significant risk to involve himself personally with the representatives from the Blood Sword Hall. Before this business with the Xian beast tendons is completed, we absolutely cannot have any mishaps. This subordinate naturally understands. Lady Yuer gently smiled before continuing. Lord Lu, do you know what came of the matter I asked of heir? Lord Lu's voice became quite solemn. Lady Yuer, Jun Xie is a cornerstone of the Tianqiang kingdom. Killing him is easier said than done. Even the Blood Sword Hall, who dares to assassinate a princess, will still hesitate and not make their decision so lightly when it comes to Jun Xie. Heir only needs to mobilize a fraction of his manpower. We can frame Jun Xie for plotting a rebellion by taking advantage of the recent uproar the old man caused in the capital. With anger clouding His Majesty's mind, the result will be obvious. Extreme resentment was palpable in Lady Yuer's voice. Even in my sleep, I dream of the death and destruction to that old man's family. Is heir going to let this decisive opportunity slip away? That's out of the question. Lord Lu resolutely rejected this suggestion. Jun Xie controls at least half of the power in Tianqiang. We can target Jun Xie himself, but not when it may implicate his entire faction. What heir wants is not a fragmented Tianqiang kingdom. Jun Xie left my country in ruins and my family dead or scattered. Listening to your words. Don't tell me. Despair was evident in Lady Yuer's voice. If heir is not capable of accomplishing this task on my behalf, then why would I continue working with him? Outrageous. Lord Lu harshly scolded before lowering his voice. Lady Yuer, your personal grudge is not a priority. Blood Sword Hall is still hesitant, so wait until they have completed their assignment in the Yutang Kingdom. At that time, heir will certainly have ways to make them submit. The three masters from the Blood Sword Hall are all at the Sky Xian cultivation level, and their mysterious leader is even rumored to be a peak-level Supreme Divine Xian expert. Dealing with a trifling Jun Xie would certainly not be a complicated matter. Besides, Jun Xie already has 1 foot in the grave. What's the harm in letting him struggle at death's door for a few more months? Lady Yuer snorted angrily but did not say a word. Jun Moxie trembled. They are planning the assassination of his grandfather. Not only were the assassins from Blood Sword Hall actually 3 Sky Xian level experts, but their leader is apparently at the Supreme Divine Xian cultivation level. But because the lake's surface had been incomparably tranquil, the water had unavoidably made an incredibly slight splash sound when he trembled. Although the sound was almost inaudible, Jun Xie still immediately cursed in his heart. Who's there? A voice snapped. There's someone under the boat. His position has been exposed. Jun Moxie didn't have time to think before turning his body around and firmly kicking off the bottom of the boat. His body looked like a big swordfish as he violently shot off underwater, quickly swimming far away. An explosion rocked the pleasure boat as the roof of the cabin disintegrated into a shower of splinters. A figure layered in a bright and dazzling golden radiance stormed into the air almost 5 zhangs high. Like a flash of lightning, his 2 eyes sweep across in all directions to discover Jun Moxie's silhouette escaping underwater at great speed. With a flash of golden light, the figure returned to the boat to seize the helmsman's long bamboo pole. Schwa. With a heave, the pole looked like black lightning enveloped in golden xian qi as it flew out from his hands towards Jun Moxie's underwater silhouette. At the same time, the figure launched high up in the sky and flew out in the same direction as the bamboo pole. Gliding over the lake's surface with the sleeves of his robe fluttering, this dazzling golden figure appeared as if a god had descended to earth. This is precisely Lord Lu. Peak gold level cultivation and just a half step from Jade Xian level. Jun Moxie continued to press on and swam toward the distance when he suddenly sensed layer upon layers of heavy pressure pushing down from above. The water surrounding his body felt as if it suddenly froze, and a feeling of impending crisis grew within his heart. His blood rapidly ran cold. Without turning his head, Jun Moxie could sense that the trajectory of this attack would penetrate his torso. If he is unable to avoid it, then there would inevitably be a bloody big hole. Swiftly making up his mind, he instantly circulated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune at full strength. Feeling the stress on his body reduced, he exerted all his effort to lean to one side, puff out his chest, stick out his butt, and suck in his waist, his appearance that of an S shape. A really killer figure with curves in all the right places. Schwa. The 4-zhang long bamboo pole, barely scraped by Jun Moxie's skin, continued past the small of his back, coincidentally threading through his clothes and even through his underwear, before deeply inserted into the lake bed. Jun Moxie felt a chill running down his thigh and a stinging pain as short curly hair suddenly floated around in the water. If the bamboo pole deviated by a hair's breadth, he feared that young Master Jun will wait upon His Majesty the Emperor. He immediately burst into a cold sweat. Standard bamboo poles are only 2 zhang in length, but the bamboo poles used at Spirit Fog Lake are relatively longer because of the depth of the lake. Jun Moxie struggled to get free. The bamboo pole that was inserted into the space between his clothes and flesh unexpectedly did not budge. A small and exquisite flying dagger appeared with a flip of his right hand before he made a quick backward slash and became free. 2 pieces of gown resembling a pair of butterflies parted to either side of him to reveal a stark and *ked body in between. If this was a young lady, then it actually would have been very alluring. Up in the sky, the golden figure quickly descended. Before even touching the lake's surface, the speed of his descent had caused waves to ripple out and the water under his feet to sink just enough to expose one end of the bamboo pole. Jun Moxie's eyes opened wide as he watched the figure sweeping down from the sky. Snorting in his heart, he suddenly straightened himself and rushed up towards the surface. Don't worry, he would never rush up to fight. As he is now, a gold Xian peak expert is still an insurmountable mountain. As his body shot upwards, his left hand suddenly punched out right as he was about to reach the surface to create a water arrow that exploded toward the falling figure in the sky. Simultaneously, his other hand grabbed the exposed end of the bamboo pole as he rapidly swam back into the lake. Circulating the art of unlocking heaven's fortune at full strength, the bamboo pole was unexpectedly pulled into a crescent shape and continued to issue out cracking sounds that caused people's teeth to sour. When the pole had been bent as far back as possible, Jun Moxie suddenly lets go after exhausting his strength reserves, his *ked body swimming away extremely rapidly far away. The bent bamboo pole straightened out with tremendous energy, and a droning wang sound ricocheted out. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 102. Very white. Jun Moxie noticed a long time ago that, while this man had aimed to strike him dead with the bamboo pole, he had also held back so that he could use the pole as a foothold. This point is further supported by his diving position. He had kept both legs pointed down toward the lake during his descent. An ordinary expert in this scenario would typically dive head first, which would more than double his current speed. This exposes a critical weakness. This Lord Lu, this aloof and dominant peak gold Xian level expert, he does not know how to swim. Jun Moxie had figured out this point in that split second. Therefore, he immediately pulled back the bamboo pole. As long as he could pull apart the bamboo pole, that Lord Lu will have nowhere to find a foothold and would have to drown himself to try and catch him. But Jun Moxie did not anticipate that the bamboo pole was not only very tenacious, but the lake bed was also very deep. Having pulled on the pole to no avail and realizing that the man is closing in, he was forced to give up. A stark and asterisk-ked body, resembling a big whitefish squeezing a bit of jet-black water plant, swimming away. Lord Lu had decided earlier that this cowardly eavesdropping individual would certainly not be a difficult opponent. Although he doesn't know how to swim, he can still attack, retreat, and defend with the aid of the bamboo pole. When the water arrow shot out at him, Lord Lu waved his sleeves and immediately swept it to one side. This revealed that his counterpart's skill is not high, and became even more relieved. But when he neared the water, he discovered that the bamboo pole head that was recently just in front of him had unexpectedly disappeared. Panic. Like a moth to the flame, he was unable to stop himself from plunging into the water. Before he had time to collect himself, he saw two big white buttocks not too far in front of him gently swaying toward the distance, and he couldn't help but become angry. At this moment, the water in front of him churned with life and, with a droning sound, a long bamboo pole surged up violently, propelling a current of water at great speed. If he knew how to swim, he would naturally evade in time. But he didn't know how to swim, was still panicking from the plunge, and was preoccupied with thoughts of drowning. How would he be able to pay attention to this bang sound? The bamboo pole that had been haphazardly drawn back earlier was situated between his two legs, striking hard and fast. A blood-curdling scream had not even been issued yet when his body instinctively bent forward and his forehead smashes into the bamboo pole. Letting out a pitiful cry, Lord Lu was sent flying and spinning like a kite with its string cut, losing so much blood that he had appeared like a salted fish that's been dried in the sun. Flying toward pleasure boat direction, the last memory before his consciousness faded was facing a pair of big white buttocks gently swaying. They were very white. A quick and agile figure flew off from the pleasure boat, unexpectedly radiating brilliant silvery light. Lady Yuer received Lord Lu's body in her arms before returning to the boat with the rope that she had tied around her waist earlier. After landing back on the boat, Lady Yuer had a complicated expression on her face as she looked toward the distance. The spy was long gone. In this pitch-black night and after this delay, there was very little chance she would catch up even if she had wanted to give chase. The previously awe-inspiring Lord Lu is now dying at her feet, unconscious. Hidden in a clump of reed on the other side of the lake, Jun Moxie still had lingering fear as he crawled ashore. He took advantage of the night to go streaking, all the while thanking his lucky stars. If he had not cultivated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to its current level, perhaps he would already have been severely injured if not dead. He really must be blessed. Knocking out a satisfied patron coming out of the brothel whose two legs were too weak to walk, Jun Moxie very nimbly pulled off his clothes and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. On the ground, a stark and asterisk-ked and plump body splayed out in the shape of a, facing the sky. A small, earthworm-like thing collapsed askew in his crotch area. The 8 Jun family bodyguards were going insane looking everywhere for their family's young master. They are acutely aware that they are in a difficult situation, If Grandpa Jun was to become aware of their dereliction of duty to protect the young master, then they would not be able to escape punishment. If this young master's grandpa creates havoc again, these men did not dare to continue this line of thought. After searching late into the night, the 8 exhausted bodyguards returned to the main gate of the Jun residence. Suddenly, they caught a glimpse of a figure that looked very similar to their family's young master and hastily ran over. Why are they not certain this is their young master? Because that man was wearing an extremely ill-fitting robe and his appearance was a total mess. Although young Master Jun is a completely good-for-nothing debauchee, his appearance was always regarded as pretty good as he usually attaches great importance to how he looks. That is why they have determined that this sorry figure is not the one they are searching for. But can 2 different people look that similar? So those 8 bodyguards continued to stare intently, and simultaneously called out in a pleasant surprise, unable to contain their joy. This looks very much like their young master but also appear to be just a dirty pedestrian. That's just the way young Master Jun is. What are the 8 of you doing? I was scared stupid in the afternoon by that little girl Ling Meng's bull's **T bodyguard. Humph. Humph. I called out to you all several times and was surprised when no one responded. Young Master Jun hurried along while shaking his head, appearing to hate iron for not becoming steel, resenting them for not being there when he needed them. Was he not just a Sky Xian level expert? You got that scared? I'm getting angry just looking your stupid expressions. You might as well go first. What? The 8 men immediately recalled that after Yi Gu Han had bellowed out in extreme anger, they had been despondent for a split second. Could it be that the young master called out right at that moment but we did not respond, and so he ran away after panting with rage? They stared dumbstruck at Jun Moxie. Their minds were all simultaneously confused. They actually hadn't remembered to ask, since you went off by yourself, why would we come back at the same time? We went to all 4 corners of Tianxiang City to look for you. Where have you been all this time? Furthermore, why are you dressed in the loose-fitting, intolerably vulgar clothes that only the newly rich would wear? Furthermore, why does your hair look like it's wet? Don't be distracted and quickly give me the blazing heart meridian. One of Jun Moxie's leg has already crossed the threshold of the gate and didn't even turn around before speaking. The bodyguards woke up as if from a dream, mechanically moving in step, to follow after the mysterious young master inside. Almost everyone was bewildered. How are the young master's legs moving so rapidly? Was he possessed? How unpleasant. Frigid wind awkwardly blew inside young Master Jun's current billowing gown as he hurried to change clothes. If people ever find out that he first swam ****, ran ****, and then stripped another man of his clothes, then his entire life's illustrious reputation as an assassin would certainly be lost in the spirit fog lake. The Jun residence's gate closed tightly shut behind everyone. Deep into the night when the moon was high in the sky, Jun Wuyi was still sitting in his wheelchair as before, absent-mindedly drinking by himself and calmly waiting for his nephew to come. In the sky, the gentle moonlight spilled upon his steadfast face. Light and shadow danced across his tranquil and abstruse expression. A wishful gaze. A hopeful gaze. An expecting gaze. Or possibly, a desperate gaze. A sound came from the courtyard gate as a Jun Moxie, dressed in his own gown, walked in with a grin. Jun Wuyi slowly turned his wheelchair and unhurriedly and calmly examined Jun Moxie up and down to discover no issues, only then relaxed and said, I heard you created a large commotion in the afternoon at Magnificent Jewel Hall? Yep. Jun Moxie spoke bluntly. Magnificent Jewel Hall is too arrogant. But he suddenly sensed that something was wrong. When third uncle spoke about magnificent jewel hall, why did he pause in the middle? His tone is also not very suitable. Jun Xie had downcast eyes and was silent for a long time before slowly speaking. Do you have any idea that I broke out in a cold sweat once I got this news? Your grandpa appears to be fine on the outside, but I know that he is scared. Moxie. Uncle know that you have courage. But, unless it is absolutely necessary, a life or death crisis, never have any conflict with magnificent jewel hall. Our Jun family cannot afford to offend the magnificent jewel hall, at least for the time being. Do you understand? He spoke this sentence very slowly, carefully pronouncing every word. It's hard to imagine that such words of resignation came from the mouth of such an unyielding, lion-hearted man. Jun Moxie was stunned, slowly sat down in front of him and said, "Third uncle, it's not like you to say these words. Is this magnificent jewel hall really so frightening? Even you are afraid of them." Jun Xie turned his head away, wouldn't let him see the look in his eyes, and replied in a cold, indifferent tone. "If I were alone, I'd naturally not be afraid of the magnificent jewel hall. Even if the magnificent jewel hall were to be stronger by 100-fold, what can they do? A man has but one life, grass but one spring, so if death comes, then so be it. And you too, Moxie. I know that you fear neither the heaven nor earth, and this third uncle is very pleased. But I always feel you don't have a strong sense of family, so I want you to promise me to always keep in mind that you are the youngest generation of a noble family. That behind you, there is a large and deeply rooted Jun family. Most of the time, the family is your greatest support, but occasionally, it can also be your most significant setback." Jun Xie looked up. His eyes betrayed many things that he could not put into words. As long as there is hope for the family, we must not give up. This is the glory of the family and also its tragedy and responsibility. Jun Moxie was silent for a long time before replying with a smile. "I understand. It's good that you understand." Jun Xie smiled mildly. "In this matter, I have been waiting for you all night. Since you understand now, have a drink with me." "Drink? Let's postpone this for another time. I'm afraid Uncle will not be able to drink wine for the next fortnight. But first, I would like to congratulate third uncle because the 5 kinds of medicinal herbs are now in our possession." Jun Moxie smiled. "And I have already determined from checking your pulse that you were ready as early as a half-month ago. Third uncle, in another 10 days, you can tear down the thing you are sitting on now and light it on fire. That day also happens to be when the restriction on your diet can be lifted." Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 103. Fight poison with poison. Jun Xie's hands trembled and the wine from his cup to spill. He silently looked at the wheelchair handle that's supporting his right hand. Although he remained completely motionless on the outside, his heart was pounding, and his mind was reeling from the news. 10 years as a cripple. Now he can see a glimmer of light. Jun Xie remained taciturn and did not say a word before Jun Moxie left. 3 days later, Jun Xie directly sealed the main gates and made an announcement. In the following days, no guests will be welcomed except by the royal decree of His Majesty. If anyone dares to take a step inside the inner courtyard without permission, he will be killed without question. The oppressive atmosphere that enveloped the Jun family was as if it were the eve of a great battle. The air was so thick that some were unable to breathe. The doors to the inner courtyard were securely closed. 2 rows of guards stood at attention outside with their swords unsheathed. The blades of their swords were glistening with the reflection of the ardent sun in the sky. Human figures could be seen moving in the shadows. The might of Jun family that had once shaken the capital was out on full display at this moment. Moreover, these guards were all veterans who have served for decades as the backbone of Jun Xiantian's elite forces. Even if they have any personal misgivings, they will discard such thoughts when they are on assignment. Each and every one is loyal and worthy of trust. Every possible and even impossible threat must be accounted for during this operation. Not a single thread or hair can be out of place. On the other side of the 4 zhang tall perimeter walls, a massive iron cauldron was positioned in the center of the inner courtyard. The size of the cauldron was so great that it can be described as a small-sized water reservoir. It has previously been filled with water and was raised on top of a raging fire. 6 burly men continuously added firewood as bubbles start to emerge on the water surface. Jun Xiantian's entire body is dressed in black and was wearing a pair of strange gloves with long sleeves that completely covered the rest of his arms. A solemn expression appeared on his face as he paced anxiously back and forth in the courtyard. In contrast, the white-clothed Jun Wuyi's appearance was exceedingly tranquil. It seems that he had come to terms with his inner demons and cast off the shackles on his heart. Jun Moxie was nearby organizing the 9-leaf grass, common heart grass, and persistent severing root on a table next to an oversized jade basin. Both his hands proceeded to put the herbs into the basin, mashed them to extract their juice, and collected in a wide-mouthed jade bottle. His movements were swift but controlled and methodical. Jun Moxie finally called out, "Third uncle." Jun Wuyi trembled from head to toe as a bright yellow earth-level xian qi rippled out and shredded the gown covering his body. Grandpa Jun flashed forward to support his son's body in a supine position. Jun Moxie promptly spread the dregs that remained in the basin on every inch of Jun Wuyi's body. The 5 medicinal herbs prescribed by Jun Moxie were all highly toxic weeds. Just one by itself is so lethal that a victim can take no more than 7 steps uphill, 8 steps downhill or 9 steps on level ground before dying. Now with 3 of the herbs, Jun Wuyi instantly felt as though he had been thrown inside a blazing inferno as searing pain spread from head to toe. He held in a groan and clenched his jaws as cold sweat dripped down from forehead. The kind of excruciating pain caused by applying 3 deadly toxins simultaneously on his body cannot be put into words. But this was only the beginning. Without any hesitation, Jun Moxie swiftly snatched the jade bottle, pressed down on Jun Wuyi's chin to open his clenched jaws, and poured the contents of the bottle down his throat. The concentrated liquid had slid down Jun Wuyi's throat before he had time to react, causing him to feel as if a ball of fire was burning him from the inside out. He couldn't endure the pain anymore and was just about to shout out in pain when Jun Moxie heartlessly stuffed his mouth with a balled-up piece of plain white cloth he had prepared long ago. Jun Xiantian shivered as he watched Jun Moxie work with such practiced ease that he was even beginning to suspect that his grandson may have tortured others before. His expression became increasingly disturbed. How can a father continue to watch his son suffer at the hands of his grandson? This is something that had to be done. Even a person with a high tolerance will succumb to this extreme pain. It is highly likely that he would have bitten off his tongue if I did not intervene by stuffing his mouth. In the time that Jun Moxie took to explain himself, he had already prepared the intestinal cracker flour in the same way as the previous 3 herbs and even took a short break. Suddenly, the 3 deadly toxins simultaneously flared up inside Jun Wuyi as his skin transformed to a shade of purple and black. The change had just appeared when Jun Moxie sprinkled the intestinal cracker flour fragments evenly on his body. Moving at extreme speeds, Jun Moxie removed the gag in his uncle's mouth, poured the intestinal cracker flour's extract down his throat, and stuffed his mouth once more before he was even aware of what happened. Jun Xie let out a muffled scream as his bloodshot eyes bulged out. The potent extract of the intestinal cracker flower reacted explosively with the cocktail of poisons already inside his body and rapidly spread from his insides out. Jun Xie could feel a wave of soul-searing pain rush forth from his dantian and frantically course through the parts of his body that had been severely injured 10 years ago. The four poisons did not exist in a state of harmony inside Jun Xie's body and was constantly attacking and resisting each other. His bare skin transformed once again, this time to the colors of the rainbow, as an unbearable pain emerged from the parts of his body he had thought would never have sensation again. The deep-seated poison that has hidden in his legs for a decade is finally being forced out. Jun Moxie sighed in relief as he stared attentively at the crotch area between Jun Xie's legs. At such a critical moment, Jun Moxie couldn't refrain himself from thinking in his mind, "It appears that mine is bigger." While this thought surfaced in his mind, his grandfather was having an emotional outburst. "Stand up. I said stand up." The old man's white beard trembled as he vigorously pointed at his son's crotch. As if heeding the call, the little Wu Yi shook its head before suddenly becoming a pillar that can support the sky. The movement was so sudden that it almost pushed against the bridge of the old man's nose as he had previously moved closer to lean over in examination. When Jun Moxie proceeded forward with the blazing heart meridian, his grandpa jumped up in fright and almost fell over. Shaking his head, Jun Moxie reprimanded. "He needs to stand up. If he can't stand, then what is the purpose of this treatment? Is it worth making such a fuss over something so small?" Grandpa Jun repeatedly hiccuped, unconcerned about his grandson chiding him, as his face lit up with a hard-to-conceal delight. His disabled son has finally recovered a man's basic function after 10 long years. To speak of nothing else, the Jun family could at least grow branches and scatter leaves. This was something that he had always brooded over, and his son's recovery simply could not have arrived at a better time. This was great news. Jun Xie's lips trembled and his face grimaced in pain. A warm sensation could be felt in his lower region, followed by the stench of urine. In his mind, he thought that the originally famous Iron Blood man, veteran of 100 battles, has now unexpectedly. Only in his fading consciousness, he can see two men, one old and one young, unexpectedly unable to take their eyes off of his junk as he loses control of his bowel movement. Between the smell and the shame, he gave a pitiful groan before directly fainting. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. As to the pair of men doggedly staring at the middle-aged man's treasure, the old one wanted to reach out to fiddle with it. This isn't something an ordinary man can endure. Even if he is his father. Isn't Jun third master more than 30 years old? The several men who had been maintaining the fire all poked their head up in succession to take a peep before quickly lowering their head in shame and returned to adding firewood. An impressive general is an impressive general. He can still be so awe-inspiring even after 10 years of inactivity. We really are inferior. After a while, every part of Jun Xie's skin finished changing into a bright multicolored color. "It's time!" Jun Moxie roared. His left hand swiftly pressed on Jun Xie's chin while his right hand circulated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to break the skin of the blazing heart meridian. A viscous black liquid gushed out and dripped into Jun Xie's mouth before he gagged his mouth again. But he also used another strip of cloth to cover his mouth before tying a knot behind Jun Xie's head. Even if he regains consciousness, it's impossible for him to spit out the white cloth. Finishing up, Jun Moxie effortlessly discarded the skin of the blazing heart meridian. His right hand continued circulating the art of unlocking heaven's fortune as he firmly pressed against Jun Xie's chest and directly injected his spiritual qi. In the blink of an eye, Jun Wuyi's body swelled up like a balloon at a speed visible to the N*Ked eye. His meridians gradually appeared on the surface of his skin, meandering like countless purple earthworms, appearing sinister and extremely nauseating. At Jun Moxie's prompting, Jun Xie reached out with one hand before an illusory tool formed from azure-colored xian qi materialized out of thin air. In no time at all, he had finished constructing a crude bamboo raft before throwing it directly into the large cauldron. At this moment, the water temperature had almost reached the boiling point. Jun Moxie leaped up into the air with Jun Wuyi's body before releasing him over the large cauldron. Right before impact, his body slowed down before gently landing face up on the bamboo raft. Jun Moxie followed soon after, landing as light as a feather on the raft and extending out both hands. Under the earnest gaze of Jun Xie, several dozen shimmering silver needles appeared out of thin air on both of Jun Moxie's hands. A needle flashed as it inserted into Jun Wuyi's Hui point. His movement was direct and efficient and did not betray the slightest hesitation. Even the usually steady Jun Xie shivered from head to toe. Just one misplaced needle could strike a lethal acupuncture point and kill his son. But even his best efforts couldn't stop him from blinking and rubbing his eyes. At the moment he rubbed his eyes, the silver needles in Jun Moxie's hand rapidly issued forth and entered the rest of the acupuncture points on Jun Wuyi. Jun Moxie kicked out with his tiptoes to flip Jun Wuyi's body in the air before landing prone on the bamboo raft. Jun Moxie extended out his two hands, once again causing more needles to appear. After several more flashes, all the silver needles were inserted Jun Wuyi's wide back. With a sigh of relief, Jun Moxie pulled the bamboo raft from under Jun Wuyi and his body directly rolled into the steaming hot water. The water surface constantly let out glug-glug, boiling sounds as the water temperature steadily rose. Jet-black liquid continuously exuded from Jun Wuyi's pores and the 7 orifices of his head. In a moment, the large basin of water had dyed pitch black in color similar to ink. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 104. Unexpected Ecstasy. Jun Xien's eyebrows twitched violently, and his two eyes opened so wide they became perfectly round. He had never seen nor had he ever heard of this poison therapy, but the fact that Jun Wuyi is still alive was already sufficient proof of the treatment's effectiveness. However, when the old man looked down at his body and then back up at the open cauldron of water, he felt a chill run down his back. If he were to fall in, he estimated that he wouldn't last long even with Sky Xian Realm Xian Qi protecting his body. Perhaps it would only take a short period before he is cooked and ready to eat. The men stoking the fire were also drenched in cold sweat, not because of the heat, but because they were terrified. This is crazy, to actually cook a living person in boiling water? What if he dies? Then what? With this temperature, it would be difficult not to boil something thoroughly. Jun Moxie was firmly standing on the rim of the cauldron, his unblinking eyes watching Jun Wuyi's body that is gently revolving in the water for any signs of change. Jun Moxie maintained a calm disposition, his face serene, expressionless, and unfeeling. Suddenly, Jun Moxie extended his left hand in and out of the boiling water without hesitation and fished out Jun Wuyi's body. Just that momentary exposure left large blisters on his hand, partly from the scalding temperature and partly from the corrosive effect of the toxin. In contrast, Jun Wuyi's skin had turned fair and white. The frightening and grotesque colors from earlier have all but faded. At the moment his body flew down and landed in Grandpa Jun's hands, Jun Moxie already placed his right palm on Jun Wuyi's dantian and unleashed the art of unlocking heaven's fortune at full strength. As time passed, Jun Moxie's complexion became increasingly pale while Jun Wuyi's skin became increasingly rosy. Finally, a silver needle was forced little by little out of Jun Wuyi's body, shaking and trembling until the needle was expelled, triggering a spurt of black blood to fly out. And then the next, until finally, the needle inserted into the Baihui point flew out, leaving a fine trail of six-colored blood. Jun Moxie exhaled as he released his palm and quickly sat cross-legged. He calmly controlled his breathing. His face had alarmingly become as pale as paper. Before he released his palm, Jun Wuyi's eyes had suddenly opened to issue forth an acute light. A light blue radiance. Light blue. This meant the deadly poisons, unsealed meridians, and Jun Wuyi's 10 years of accumulated Xian Qi all exploded out at the same time. Along with the high efficacy of the Blazing Heart Meridian, he had directly broken through from Earth Xian level to the Sky Xian level, ascending 3 stages in the blink of an eye. Not only that, but Jun Wuyi will henceforth be immune to hundreds of poisons after being refined by the Blazing Heart Meridian. A super-strong expert was born. Seeing the light blue radiance, Jun Zhantian immediately jumped up high, laughed out loud, and his eye bulged out as if he saw a ghost. He had even unconsciously pulled out a tuft of white beard with his right hand. He had diligently trained for a greater part of his life and had only reached the Sky Xian level. It had already been remarkable that his son had cultivated to the Earth Xian level at his age. All the more so when he had achieved this result in the space of 10 years that he had been severely injured and wheelchair-bound. But to be able to ascend to the Sky Xian realm as if riding a rocket after opening his sealed meridians. Unbelievable. The old man shook his head. His heart was torn. Happy, grateful, excited, a little terrified, but mostly still questioning if this was actually happening. On the one hand, he was so happy that he wanted to sing and dance. On the other hand, he had a bittersweet feeling in his heart. Bitter because this could all be a dream, and sweet because he had not awakened from it yet. Jun Wuyi felt a tingling sensation surge from his 2 legs that had been paralyzed for past 10 years. The Xian Qi effortlessly coursed through his meridians. He was moved to tears. I am finally able to stand up again. Enemies of the past. I, Jun Wuyi, vow that I will hunt you down soon enough, and you will pay for your sins. He stood up with one swift motion to experience the sensation of using his 2 legs to walk again. Third uncle, you still need to sit down for the time being. Please be patient and endure for a short while longer. Jun Moxie's tired voice came from behind. It is imperative that you currently condense and circulate your Xian Qi. The medicinal strength of the Blazing Heart Meridian is high, and it has already neutralized and flushed out the other poisons. However, all of its therapeutic effects remain untouched within third uncle's body. If you do not absorb it as soon as possible, it will degrade and the benefits will be lost. Moreover, third uncle had not moved your legs in 10 years, so your blood vessels will definitely be blocked. You will require a long period of rehabilitation before you can make a full recovery. Jun Moxie closed his eyes and slowly explained. This unexpected breakthrough was a moment of ecstasy, but also a major obstacle in one's path of cultivation. However, if one can seize this unique opportunity to meditate and strengthen their mind, there will be great benefits toward one's consciousness and future cultivation. One has to know that the medicinal strength of a 500-year-old Blazing Heart Meridian is extremely formidable. It can single-handedly fight against the poisons that were previously within Jun Wuyi's body. But other than the Blazing Heart Meridian's fierce toxicity, its therapeutic effects are also exceedingly outstanding. According to Jun Moxie's plan, He would borrow the blazing heart meridian's potency to forcefully resist the other poison's toxic effects, and then he would utilize the boiling water and silver needles to expel the poison in one go. There were no accidents when he was executing these steps, as everything went rather smoothly without a hitch. Subsequently, he intended to revitalize his uncle's body using the blazing heart meridian's therapeutic properties. This method would still require at least half a month for Jun Xie to fully recover. After all, his two legs have been disabled for a long time and would be unable to absorb this sudden large dose of nourishment. He would need to take it slow and gently recuperate. But young Master Jun perceived a few days ago that his art of unlocking heaven's fortune could not only be used to nurse his health but can also be used on others. He cannot recall any other abilities in his two lives that are comparable to this miraculous skill. And one of the topical benefits is that the art of unlocking heaven's fortune can cure all the poisons in the world. So young Master Jun decided to modify his original plan and used his Xian art to nourish his third uncle's body after the poison had been neutralized. Not only did his idea work out, but the results had far exceeded his expectation. Third uncle's body had been completely reborn within an hour of the treatment, and the therapeutic benefits of the blazing heart meridian were not even needed. Instead, its essence had entirely transformed into pure Xian Qi and assimilated into third uncle's body. When this was combined with the Xian Qi accumulated from third uncle's 10 years of bitter closed-door cultivation, the amount of pure Xian Qi was equivalent to the product of at least 50 years of ordinary cultivation. This explained why Jun Xie could break through to become a Sky Xian expert. All of this was credited to Jun Moxie's fortune Xian art. As the saying goes, when conditions are right, success will follow naturally. Jun Xie paused and did not dare to dismiss his nephew's instructions. Sitting cross-legged, he tried his utmost to clear his mind so that he could enter the state of cultivation as quickly as possible. Even so, it took a lot more time than usual for him to stabilize his consciousness. As the Xian Qi finally began to circulate throughout his meridians, he slowly became unconscious of the boundary between himself and the outside world. Jun Moxie had only sat down for a moment before spiritual qi had rushed out of the Hanjun pagoda and replenished the energy he had depleted from using the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Slow to his feet, he saw Jun Xian's meaningful glance and the emotions expressed in his eyes. Moxie. Jun Xian stared blankly at his grandson for a moment before bursting into tears. This old-aged, white-haired Grandpa Jun was unable to say a word and wept bitterly. A once-in-a-generation, famous general who have caused sovereigns to be stricken with fear and generals to flee at his presence, had unexpectedly lost self-control. Jun Moxie couldn't help but feel pain in his heart as he solemnly lowered his head. Who knows how much the old man had suffered over the years? What kind of torment had he endured? He originally enjoyed many descendants, joyous and harmonious, respected and revered, and served only one and had dominion over millions. Suddenly, 2 of his sons passed away in succession as casualties of war, and his surviving son was crippled for life. How can any father bear such a burden? An orphan in his youth, a widower in his middle age, and bereaved father who lost his sons in his old age. Jun Xie had reached the highest official position but had lost everything else. But Providence did not think he had been punished severely enough. The 2 grandsons that he had put his heart into nurturing, where he had placed all his hopes and dreams, would never return from their military expedition on the eve of their weddings. Even their bodies were never recovered. Before the news arrived, Jun Xie was in the midst of ordering people to decorate the bridal chambers, looking forward to his grandson's return to get married and the day he can hold his great-grandson. He believed from the bottom of his heart that this moment would be the happiest in his life. When Jun Xie received the news, his hair and beard turned white overnight. The former days of a loving family sitting in a circle cheerfully talking and laughing were gone forever. Besides himself, such a big family had been reduced to a handicapped son and a disappointing grandson. Despair filled his eyes. As a result, Jun Xien's spirit continued to go lower. He had already fallen into depression and lost all hope. But in his moment of absolute despair, his once incomparably disappointing grandson, Jun Moxie, had an unexpectedly change of heart. Gone was the debauchee, replaced with a lofty and unyielding character who acts according to propriety, profound in his schemes, flexible in his thoughts, and circumspect in his attitude. This had already brought comfort to Grandpa Jun's heart and had raised his spirits immensely. But he didn't expect that the biggest surprise was yet to come. All the renowned doctors from the kingdom had diagnosed his son's disability as impossible to treat. Yet his grandson had now achieved the impossible. Heaven is merciful. Jun Xien's tears fell unhindered as he cried tears of joy. All of his sorrow and anxiety these past 10 years have been swept clean. Heaven's mercy allowed his Jun family to be able to have today and have hope for the future. Jun family had not only gained a capable heir, but the student had also surpassed the master. The old man closed his eyes at this moment and did not have any regrets. He could proudly face the ancestors of the Jun family. The old man was deeply moved and remained speechless, but his body continuously trembled. After a long time, a deep, low, and clear hum was heard as Jun Wuyi's black hair flew up. Light burst forth from his eyes as he slowly got off the ground. This is the first time in 10 years that he had relied on his 2 legs to stand up. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 105. Grand Preceptor Li and the Jade Sea Coral. Slowly lowering his head to inspect his now healthy and strong legs, he moved with caution at first before gradually progressing to kicking as his confidence grew. Suddenly, he broke out in emphatic laughter and laughed and laughed and laughed until he was in tears. This general who had once shaken the world, an iron-blooded man who did not shed tears when he suffered a plot against him, had broken down in tears when he had recovered. He saw, with tears in his eyes, the affectionate moment between his father and his nephew. A surge of emotions overwhelmed him and, with a quick 2 steps, suddenly plopped down on his knees. This unworthy child pays respect to father. It's been 10 years where he could not kowtow to his father. Jun Xie was trembling from head to toe as he faltered. "My son, stand up. Quickly. Quickly stand up." Moxie. Jun Wuyi stood up and stared deeply at Jun Moxie. "You have given me back my life." Before he could finish, Jun Moxie's laughter interrupted him. "Third uncle, you speak as if you were not already alive and well. Besides, I'm your nephew. Could it be that we have to write out 2 Jun with one brush? There's no need for petty distinctions between family members. Not to mention that this is my duty as part of the younger generation." Jun Wuyi let out a deep, hearty laugh and stared deeply at his nephew. He had made a wholehearted decision at this moment. "Since I can stand, I'll bear Jun family's heavy burden upon my shoulders. My, Jun Wuyi's, long sword that has been covered in dust for 10 years is once more unsheathed. Not for king and country, and not for the common people, but for the Jun family, and for Moxie." Third uncle. Jun Moxie suddenly started laughing uncontrollably. It was rather strange, as if he harbored mischievous intention. The 2 men were at a loss and looked at him in confusion. "Third uncle, your asset is quite substantial, but..." Jun Moxie was now shaking all over from laughing. This valiant and spirited bearing, although Grandpa definitely won't mind, your nephew is still a little embarrassed. You should cover up. Ha ha ha. Jun Moxie winked as he gazed toward Jun Wuyi's lower half. Jun Wuyi had been stark and *ked during his treatment and subsequent meditation. After he had discovered his complete recovery, he had completely neglected this point under his emotional state of mind. Up until now, he was still exposed, wagging his head in a high-spirited manner. 10 years waiting for this day, and he did not know when to test his gun. Jun Xie was prompted by Moxie's words to look at his son's majestic thing and also couldn't help blowing his beard as he burst into loud laughter. Jun Wuyi's long face immediately turned purple like an eggplant, indignantly gnashing his teeth. Little brat, you just wait a minute, and I'll come back to teach you a lesson. He barely made a sound as he disappeared, leaving behind a grandfather and his grandson hold their stomach, laughing without any restraint or regards to their image. A short while later, Jun Wuyi reappeared dressed in black, rolling up his sleeves as he said, "Boy, have some guts and don't run." Jun Moxie jumped out of his skin and screamed, "Save me! I will not fight," turned around and ran away. But how can his speed compare to Jun Wuyi, who had recently advanced to Sky Xian expert? The pow-pow sound of buttocks being struck echoed out around the courtyard. Jun Moxie was laughing one moment, then begging for forgiveness the next as he ran for dear life. Jun Wuyi completely ignored him and continued to beat that ***. Seeing no other choice, Jun Moxie suddenly stopped to change direction before taking a big leap forward to hide behind Grandpa Jun. Jun Wuyi snorted in exasperation and continued to chase and strike. Even though Grandpa Jun had the strength of a Sky Xian expert, he still became dizzy and lightheaded from these two people running circles around him. However, he was not upset at all but rather enjoyed this moment as he continued to laugh. It had been a very long time since this scene of family love and joy had appeared in this household. Seeing the 6 burly men who had tended to the fire preparing to tip over the giant iron cauldron, Jun Moxie hastily shouted out, "Stop! I still have a use for that, so do not dump it." When he yelled out, Jun Wuyi and Jun Xie were simultaneously flabbergasted. Jun Wuyi wasn't seriously disciplining his nephew. All 3 men had been grinning from ear to ear. He had long since forgotten about the awkward situation. How can you dispose of it so casually? This is incredibly valuable. Jun Moxie drove away the men by iron cauldron and picked up a leather bag that was off to the side. He poured its content into the pitch-black water, and the surface exploded just like pouring water onto hot oil. Jun Moxie quickly backed away after he emptied the bag, only to see the black water splash out from the cauldron onto the ground. The ground where the water landed immediately turned jet black. Jun Wuyi and Grandpa Jun were dumbstruck. This poison is too malicious. What did you add? How can it be so tyrannical? Grandpa Jun did not feel ashamed of asking and learning from his grandson. The old man understands that his grandson had lots of strange tricks up his sleeves and cannot fathom that anything he did is ordinary. It was just snake venom, but there were many different kinds. Jun Moxie explained unhurriedly. There are 13 kinds of viper venom altogether. Jun Moxie pointed at the big iron cauldron. Grandfather. Third uncle. Take a look. The bath water in the cauldron is comprised of 6 highly lethal poisons, but their overbearing properties perfectly complement and subdue one another, causing them to exist in harmony. Adding the snake venom disrupts this precarious balance and converts the water in the cauldron into the deadliest poison between heaven and earth. If we immerse the weapons from our family's armories in this solution for several days, Then the soldiers under our command will be able to wield weapons that will cause our enemy's heart and lungs to fail. If this is deployed during wartime. Hee 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 hee. Too cruel. Too malicious. Too despicable. Too shameless. If such weapons were used against enemy soldiers, just a small cut on the skin would be capable of killing a man. Even Grandpa Jun with his Sky Xian level cultivation might not necessarily survive past an hour if he was afflicted by this ultimate poison. Horrifying. It really made one feel terrified. Both of Jun Zhangtian and Jun Wuyi stretched their necks with their eyes wide open, staring at Jun Moxie like they were looking at a demon that had escaped from hell and simultaneously broke into cold sweat. Compared to Jun family's harmonious joy and jubilation, a cloud of anxiety hung over the Grand Preceptor's manor at this moment. Even though Li Zhen and Meng Haizhou were driven out of the magnificent jewel hall, and the Li family had been prohibited from returning to the auction house, it was only a minor inconvenience so long as they still have access to the Meng family's box. Moreover, the two of them had successfully bided on the Jade Sea coral and brought it back to the manor without incident. Just this point is already a great achievement. It would be fair to say that this is their biggest achievement to date. But after Li Yuran saw the Jade Seal coral, the smug smile that Li Zhen had kept concealed was replaced by fear and trepidation as he recounted the events at the auction house. Li Zhen had thought that Li Yuran would punish him in anger and waited on tenterhooks until Li Yuran gently said one line. "Oh. Only 5 million taels of silver? That's not bad considering you were able to obtain the Jade Sea coral even with the Tang family's interference. Little brother Zhen, you can go to Accountant Li and receive payment for your advance of 3 million taels of silver." Li Yuran unexpectedly did not mention the shame and humiliation from having their access to the magnificent jewel hall revoked. It was truly baffling. Li Zhen and Meng Haizhou could hardly believe they were hearing and were almost convinced that the person standing in front of them is not Li Yuran but a body double. When did the young master become so nice? The two of them were staring blankly for half the day as if they had just woken up from a deep sleep. They were trying to understand what happened but couldn't come up with anything. In the end, they couldn't help but sigh deeply and just thank their good fortune. Li Yuran was calmly sitting with a faint smile on his face as he looked at the sparkling and translucent Jade Sea coral in front of him. After a while, he deeply exhaled and thought to himself, "I was almost too careless not to have considered that old man Tang would also want this item. If I had let this great opportunity slip, it would certainly have been due to my negligence. If I had not sent these 2 white silk pants but sent someone else, wouldn't the latter be intimidated by the exorbitant price and give up on bidding for the Jade Sea coral? This may be the only good quality of being a white silk pant. As the saying goes, every dog has its day. Everyone will have good luck or success at some point in their lives. This is probably what that means." Having thought up to this point, he chuckled softly before circulating Xian Qi through his palm into the Jade Sea coral. A golden aura had flashed across his whole body before he pulled back his hand, a cheerful expression on his face. The rumors were true. There was an extraordinary amount of pure energy inside this treasure. If his grandfather can absorb this energy, it would still easily extend his life even if he cannot cultivate Xian arts again. Gracefully standing up, he walked toward Grand Preceptor Li Shang's study while holding the Jade Sea coral. Inside the study, Grand Preceptor Li narrowed his eyes as he examined the Jade Sea coral in front of him. A happy expression soon revealed itself on his face, not just because of the benefits to his health, but more so because of his grandson's filial piety. Grand Preceptor Li suddenly felt blessed to have such a grandson in his life. What more can he ask for? "Grandfather, the matter should not be delayed. A long night is fraught with dreams. We do not know if the others will catch on. Why don't we follow the method that my master had previously disclosed? Let me promptly draw out this pure energy, and then grandfather will absorb this treasure as soon as possible. Li Yuran smiled with poise. Li Shang chuckled and then pondered. That is also good. You go and get your men to come here so that we can start cultivating. Li Yuran nodded in agreement before clapping his hands twice. The footsteps of someone approaching was heard moments later. A respectful and sincere voice reported. Lord, young master, we have already cleared the area 30 zhangs surrounding the study. Is this adequate? Li Yuran gently said. Enough. The people outside responded by not making a sound. Li Shang looked at his grandson with satisfaction and asked. Your seniors have already returned? Li Yuran replied. Yes. They have already returned to the mountain and had a pleasant if not uneventful journey. I will certainly convey grandfather's concerns on your behalf. Li Shang coughed twice, smiled and said. Why is a grandfather and grandson talking about this? It's unfortunate that your master cannot personally take action. If he can come, our Li family will be much more reassurance. He heavily sighed as he reached this point. Master is already preparing for the appointment in 3 years at Qi Tian Peak. I fear that we absolutely cannot be distracted for the time being. But with the assistance of those several seniors, I believe we can still easily deal with the internal affairs of Tianxiang Kingdom. So long as it is not a major military campaign, there is nothing for us to worry about. Li Shang gave a noncommittal nod, deeply exhaled a breath, and said encouragingly. Since there is no time to lose, let's commence now. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 106. Some people are happy and some people are sad. Yes. Li Yuran replied. He gently placed the jade sea coral in front of Li Shang and then reached out with one hand to firmly press down on one side of the coral. He closed his eyes before deeply exhaling a breath. A golden aura burst forth from his body, evidence that he is circulating his Xian arts at full strength. A ringing sound came from the jade sea coral. What was once sparkling and translucent as jade is now radiating a faint and subtle light. An almost imperceptible blue qi slowly rose up from its surface, and the entire body of the jade sea coral transformed into a strange blue color. The time has come. A glint of desire flashed across Li Shang's eyes, but his state of mind quickly became calm. He slowly extended his dry and thin right hand and lightly placed it on the other side of the jade sea coral. The moment his palm made contact with the coral, the fine strands of qi aroused by Li Yuran avidly rushed up Li Shang's arm at a speed that can be seen by the n*Ked and into his body. As the blue qi entered his body, a heartfelt happy expression flitted across Grand Preceptor Li Shang's formerly stoic face. He distinctly felt a soothing sensation in his meridians as more and more blue qi rushed in. Li Shang's body responded by becoming more and more relaxed, almost as if his spirit was shaking in joy. His dantian had been severely injured all those years ago by one of Jun Zhantian's explosive punches and had caused him to lose sensation in that region ever since. But he can currently feel a slight sense of pain before the mild and gentle blue qi alleviates it. His dantian and meridians that have been damaged for so many years is finally recovering. Both men had their eyes close, but they can clearly sense a genuine joy included among the changes. Both men did not realize that during their moment of intense excitement and happiness, the jade sea coral had abruptly changed into a pure white color. The blue qi had originally enveloped the frenzied white spiritual qi such that the white qi was unable to rush out. But in the wake of Li Yuran's prompting and Li Shang absorbing, The density of the blue qi became more and more sparse as the white qi became more and more concentrated. Under this condition, the voice of the guest gradually overwhelmed that of the host. There is only one last step for the Dantian to recover fully. This decades-old infirmity that had bothered Grand Preceptor Li for half his life will recover very soon. How can he not be emotional? Not wild with joy? Even if Grand Preceptor Li is accustomed to strong wind and big waves, he still felt his heart stir at this moment. Li Shang felt a sense of exultation in his heart as he uttered quaveringly, "Yuran, my Dantian should recover at any moment." Li Yuran ecstatically exclaimed, "Grandfather, from now on the shackle that Jun Xie placed on your body can be eliminated. My Li family will be able to move unhindered." Haha. Both grandfather and grandson simultaneously broke out in a sincere smile filled with hope and dreams for the future. Suddenly, in the midst of their joy, an unexpected change occurred. During the most critical moment of recovery inside Grand Preceptor Li's Dantian, the entirely incompatible spiritual Qi Jun Moxie previously injected suddenly broke free of the blue Qi's constraints like a dragon that struggled free of its fetters. Lightning followed the stream of blue Qi and burst out from the Jade Sea coral with irresistible force. A wisp of exceptionally frantic and violent Qi streamed like a loose demon and entered Li Shang recently restored meridians, bashing sideways and colliding straight on, before squeezing like a hot knife through butter into his Dantian that's on the verge of a complete recovery. Caught off guard, Li Shang only managed to feel an explosive rumble in his Dantian as his complexion instantly became deathly pale. The nearly recovered Dantian suddenly collapsed and broke apart like shattered porcelain. The cracks crisscrossed like tree roots and spread in all directions along his meridians. Li Shang violently sprayed out a mouthful of blood. Having lost consciousness some time earlier, his limp body fell backward. "Grandfather!" Li Yuran cried out, confused and distraught. At the same time that Li Shang collapsed, the Jade Sea coral exploded into pieces without any warning under the intense reaction between the two types of spiritual qi. Li Yuran had been extremely worried and had stretched himself over the Jade Sea coral to examine his grandfather. The fragments directly exploded across his whole face. A blood-curdling scream, a bloody head, and a bloody face. What's going on? Why? Why did this happen? Can anyone tell me what this is? Ah! Li Yuran couldn't keep his poise as he howled up at the sky. At this moment, the typically peaceful and always steady Li Yuran had a face contorted with fear, helplessness, anxiety, anger, and blood looking much like a devil. Jade Sea coral. The Jade Seal coral was obviously working fine, so why did it explode? Master had promised. He had promised. Li Yuran tore at his hair, completely disregarding the grievous injuries to his face as if he had turned completely insane. To be honest, even Jun Moxie himself did not know that such an accident would occur. He did not expect that the stream of qi he had poured on a whim would achieve such an excellent result. His original intention was only to make the Jade Sea coral unusable since he could not stand Li Zhen's face and nothing more. Jun Moxie certainly didn't anticipate that the mixture of his spiritual energy and the pure energy of this word would trigger a formidable explosive reaction not inferior to an IED. This explosion utterly severed Grand Preceptor Li's hope to restore his Xian Qi. Even if a deity descended upon this world, he might not be able to restore Li Shang's Dantian. Not only that, the damage to Li Shang's already feeble body was like adding hail to snow such that he's almost at death's door. This is like casually planting flowers but inadvertently growing a willow. He really did put in little effort and reaped massive gains. Besides, Li Yuran's once handsome and confident face is now covered with not many Just 7 or 8 scars. But these 7 or 8 scars have completely disfigured his face. If Li Yuran did not instantly react by closing his eyes, perhaps he would have already become blind. But even so, Li Yuran would have to wear a veil for the rest of his life. This explosion really was an inexplicable freak accident. Some people are happy, and some people are sad. Compared to the joy and jubilation of the Jun family, a cloud of anxiety and misery hung over the Li family, and the donghua family was actually about to explode like a volcano. Ever since Princess Ling Ming paid a visit, the donghua family was like a massive barrel of gunpowder that just detonated. Donghua Xiao Yi was discreetly shuttled away under the arrangement of her grandmother. Donghua Zongheng pointed at donghua Wudi's face as he let loose a torrent of profanity for 2 entire hours, sporadically letting loose extremely angry kicks and punches. Great General donghua Wudi grimaced in pain but did not dare to resist as he continued to agree obsequiously. The anger in his heart was not any less than his father's. You're a pig. You are a useless son of a b*tch. Look at your daughter. Is this how you look after your daughter? Ha! Ned good for nothing. You downright pig. Grandfather donghua was infuriated. I'm looking at a pig. But you're still better to look at than Jun Moxie. Fuck. How could it be that Jun Moxie? How could your eyes be so blind? Donghua Wudi's face was covered in spit, but he didn't dare to wipe it off. He stammered with some difficulty. I also didn't know about this. If I had known earlier. This comment set off another round of howling wind and torrential rain. Tui. You didn't know? You didn't even know this much. And you call yourself a father. Grandfather donghua almost went insane with anger. That Jun Moxie is the capital's infamous debauchee. Respectable people stay 3 days' march from him. And even notorious people stay clear of him. A daughter of a respectable household wanted to marry him? And she happens to be our family's Xiao Yi? Is the inside of your head stuffed with bean curd dregs or filled with water? Or do you just want to get your ass kicked? D*MNU for being a stupid and unbearable shit. Idiot. How did I, your brilliant father, raised you into a spoiled and rotten pig? Donghua Wudi submissively endured the torrential rain of sputter and could not even open his eyes. Father. Please calm down. Xiao Yi's indiscretion had started just recently. We can assume that the relationship between the two hadn't made much headway. There is still time. His words thoroughly poked the hornet's nest. Donghua Zongheng stood up in a fit of violent rage and let loose a flying kick that launched donghua Wudi's tall and sturdy body into the air. He stomped his feet and let out a rain of curses. You! I can't believe the words that are coming out of your mouth. What do you even mean that they haven't made much headway? Do you want them to have made progress? Not too late. Does your daughter have to be pregnant for it to be too late? You don't think Jun Moxie, that son of a b*tch, can make it happen? The more he talked, the angrier he became. Donghua Zongheng grabbed his son and beat him up. His mother normally would have intervened long ago. But she actually stood to the side and hadn't made any indication to step in. Instead, she fanned the flames and said, "You deserve this. How did this old woman give birth to such a dim-witted son?" Donghua Zongheng finally vented some of his anger after beating the living daylight out of his son. He said with a dark expression on his face, "We must put an end to this. Use this time that Xiao Yi is accompanying the princess in the palace and handle this affair in a satisfactory manner. If I hear something like this happen again, I'll kick the shit out of you. Why haven't you left yet? Do you want this old man to go personally?" A bloody-nosed, Swollen-faced Great General Dugu Wudi hastily scrambled up off the ground, turned tail, and ran. Once Dugu Wudi returned to his courtyard, it immediately devolved into panic and chaos. He first vented his frustrations by yelling at his wife and concubines before passing down an order: Dugu Ing, Dugu Xiong, Dugu Hao, Dugu Jia, Dugu Chong, Dugu Shang, and Dugu Qian are to return immediately from the army camps outside the city. There must be no delay. If they are even late half a step, then they will be punished by martial law. No, family law. Great General Dugu wanted to behead Jun Moxie. That abominable little brat dared to seduce my daughter and caused I, your father, to suffer my father's outburst and abuse. Are you bored of life? You think I, your father, won't dare to move against you because of your grandfather? I won't be satisfied until I skin you alive. Just the beating I suffered today. Not to mention teasing my baby Xiao Yi. Humph. Humph. The 7 men identified by Dugu Wudi were all precisely the younger generation of the Dugu family. Dugu Zongheng had chosen their names such that the 7 men's given names combined to mean heroes and legends bravely rushing forward. A very imposing name. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 107. What's the plan? The 7 men identified by Dugu Wudi were all precisely the younger generation of the Dugu family. Dugu Zongheng had chosen their names such that the combination of the 7 men's given names meant heroes and legends bravely rushing forward. They were truly imposing names. Dugu Zongheng had originally meant this to be the first line of a couplet, with the second line being dragons, tigers, leopards, and wolves flying through the heavens. He had been waiting for his 3 sons to work hard to complete the couplet, but he didn't expect that after the birth of these 7 grandsons, only one precious granddaughter, Dugu Xiao Yi, was born. The old man decided to keep his hopes up, but alas, it was just not written in his fate. This made Dugu Zongheng endlessly depressed, and he was forced to put the second line in the back of his mind. Whether the storm-riding general will complete his couplet has become a moot point. Such a beautiful line will never have an opportunity to be used. For this reason, it was only natural that the greatly disappointed Dugu Zongheng would have directed quite a few scowls, stare-downs, and curses at his 3 sons for not being more productive, failing to live up to expectations. Although the old man may be rude and excessive, he also did not casually scold his daughter-in-laws, and thus directed his wrath at his sons. Only Dugu Wudi, the eldest of the 3 sons, is currently residing in the capital. The other 2, Dugu Wushang and Dugu Wutong, were defending the kingdom's southern and eastern borders and had made no plans to ever return, the direct result of the old man's abuse over the years. A general also needs a little face. Having earned distinctions for defending the borders, they obviously will not return on their own volition. The eldest brother had also wanted to leave home to avoid the old bag. Unfortunately for him, his younger brothers had been deployed, and he was not allowed to leave. Other than returning for their parents' birthdays each year, the 2 of them would play deaf-mute even if the old man ordered them to return. The 2 times they do come home, they normally did not wait for Dugu Wudi or the old man to sober up before they were already gone without a trace. The other 2 borders of the Tianxiang kingdom are defended by men under the old man Jun's personal command and had no connections with the Dugu family. This state of affairs made Dugu Wudi feel wronged in his heart. I'm the eldest brother. Why was I born under such an ill-fated star? A tirade of abuse every 3 days and violently assaulted every fortnight. How long do I have to endure this? When all is said done, I am still a great general, a government official, and a 40-years-old father. At this time, when a cloud of misery hung over the Li family, and a conflagration raged in the Dugu family, the source of one family's woe and another's fury, Jun Moxie was indulging in excessive drinking with his grandfather. The black-clothed Jun Xie was sitting to one side and could only watch, but not partake. His Adam's apple repeatedly moved up and down as he swallowed his saliva. This was in accordance with young Master Jun's prescription. Since your injury had just healed, you cannot drink wine for the time being. Unfortunately, this pair of grandfather and grandson was smacking their lips as they savored the wine, an extremely satisfied appearance, with the sweet fragrance of the wine assailing his nostrils. Jun Xie couldn't take it anymore. Moxie, your grandpa is very curious about your xian art and strange cultivation method. Jun Xie asked as while pouring himself another cup of wine. Even Jun Xie's eyes opened wide and his ears stood erect when this question was asked. That was because Jun Moxie's xian art really was too inconceivable. The two men could be considered to have extensive experience, but they have never seen nor have they heard of a xian qi capable of such effects. It could not only heal and dispel poisons, but it also does not emit any light. Its power can only be matched by its abnormality. This kind of miraculous xian art ought to be extremely famous throughout the Xian continent, but there have never been any such rumors, which was extremely baffling. Jun Moxie remained silent for a while before he replied. Grandfather. Third uncle. Do you have to ask me about this? I would rather not lie to you. Ah. This old man understands. Jun Xie came to a sudden realization. Did the expert that taught you this xian art ask you to keep it a secret? Huh. These people tend to have eccentric dispositions. It would do you more harm than good if news of this miraculous xian art spread. The fewer people that know, the better. Huh. This old man will not ask further. Yes. Will not ask further. Yes. We will not only stop asking about Moxie's miraculous xian art, but we must also do our utmost to keep this a secret. Jun Xie nodded. Who would not drool over such a xian art? Just a small rumor could lead to unthinkable consequences. Correct. All that matters is that Moxie is a member of our Jun family. That is already more enough. Jun Xie laughed to his heart's content. He gave Jun Moxie a meaningful glance, and his affection for his grandson grew. Jun Moxie only returned a blank stare. Who could have thought that before he could even fabricate an explanation, these two men had already convinced themselves with their flawless reasoning. Moxie, your third uncle is now recovered. What do you intend to do next? Tell your grandpa. Jun Xie was in a very good mood. He looked at his grandson with satisfaction as he ran his hands through his beard. Plans? What plans would I have? Am I not free now that third uncle has recovered? I will just continue to act as a debauchee. Jun Moxie drank some wine and started digging into the wild boar meat on the table with two greasy hands. As to what happens next, I'll just follow Grandpa's directions. In the meantime, third uncle's recovery cannot be known by others. His advancement into the sky xian level, in particular, must remain in the utmost secrecy for us all. Hiccup. This will depend on your performance, Grandpa. You will have to continue to be miserable when you leave. Jun Xie furrowed his brows at this proposition. He drank some wine and said, Nonsense. I've already worried more than enough because of you two **stards. Now that Moxie is working hard to improve himself and Wui has also fully recovered, what is there for me to worry about? How can you ask me to pretend when all of my past frustrations are gone? He sighed deeply after finishing speaking. It's not that he isn't capable, But the old man is rather tired of those miserable days. He had no choice but to worry in the past. But he still can't be happy now that all his worries have been resolved. Now that is depressing. What to do? Jun Moxie licked his greasy hands. You're saying that you are worried that you are now worry-free? You bring up a good point. Just leave it to your grandson to make you worry again. Do you want me to cause trouble at the magnificent jewel hall? Kidnap the 3 princes and give them a beating? Or bring home a few commoner girls? You're looking for a spanking. The old man was aware that it was only a joke. But he still got angry nonetheless. I hadn't even reprimanded you for the incident at the magnificent jewel hall the other day. But you brought it up yourself. Understand that there are powers that be such as the magnificent jewel hall that are above even nation-states. You cannot provoke the magnificent jewel hall no matter what. They are not an organization you can afford to offend even when you advance to the pinnacle of the supreme divine Xian realm. Are we clear? The old man's voice immediately became solemn, and his expression was quite severe. Just what is the magnificent jewel hall's origin? Instead of fear, a strong curiosity arose in Jun Moxie's heart. Even a peak expert at the supreme divine realm can't provoke? More powerful than nation-states? I can only tell you that the magnificent jewel hall is as large and powerful as an iceberg. Just the tip is already enough to force the world to cower at their feet. There are even a few supreme divine Xian experts among their ranks. This old man can't even begin to fathom the depth of their spy network. But I do know for certain that we must not provoke them. Zhan Tian sighed, looked at the Jun Wuyi, and regrettably sighed again. Jun Wuyi's face twitched, anguish apparent in his eyes as if his entire spirit suffered a deep stab of pain at this moment. But he calmed down immediately and sat peacefully, if only just more quiet than before. In that case, the family's secret forces will henceforth be placed under Wuyi's control. As for you, Moxie, Grandpa Jun muttered to himself, undecided for a long time before finally giving up and said, You just do what you do best and help your uncle whenever you have time. Jun Wuyi and Jun Moxie nodded in agreement before Jun Moxie called to attention. Grandpa. Third uncle. Before third uncle officially take over as the head of the family's secret forces, we must first thoroughly eliminate any enemies within our ranks. Pausing, Jun Moxie stared fixedly at the 2 men. Third uncle's full recovery is naturally a momentous occasion for our Jun family but becomes an additional threat to outsiders. Especially. Jun Moxie faintly smiled as he pointed his fingers upward. The meaning is self-evident. Grandpa had probably already purged our family's secret forces of any agents from the other major families. I am convinced of this point. However, there must still be agents of the imperial family within our family. And Grandpa, you should have already identified these men, but you have just turned a blind eye so far, correct? Jun Moxie smiled. However, this is now a critical moment. Therefore, they must be removed. Jun Zhantian looked at his grandson in shock. Every point Jun Moxie made had hit the mark. His deduction had no mistake. For a long time, an expression of agony appeared on Jun Zhantian's face before he said, Correct. There are men in our midst that were dispatched by His Majesty, and they had already infiltrated our family for more than a decade. But they have never acted against our Jun family. Since our Jun family never act against the imperial family and have always been loyal and devoted subjects, they naturally never had the reason to make a report. But things are different now. Even though we are still loyal, if our secret is leaked, I suspect it is enough to exterminate our entire family. Jun Moxie's eyes shined brightly and carefully said each word. At the moment, Even if they have already betrayed the imperial family and have genuinely turned into loyal men of the Jun family, we still cannot afford to take this risk. This is not the time to be soft-hearted. He who hesitates is lost. Jun Xie sighed, deep wrinkles appearing on his aged face at that moment. After a long time, he said, "You're right. In a moment, I will hand over a list of names to the both of you. As for what to do, I'll leave it for you two to decide. You do not need to keep me informed." Standing up, he slowly walked away with heavy footsteps. Xie, isn't doing things this way too cruel? Your grandpa cannot bear to. Is it possible? Jun Xie frowned. An expression of struggle appeared on his face. Jun Xie would not hesitate to act against his enemies, but he didn't have the heart to act against people who had distinguished themselves by outstanding meritorious service to the Jun family. Even though he is fully aware that they were undercover agents dispatched by His Majesty to spy on the Jun family, but they have been through thick and thin with the Jun family many times. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 108. Collision of the Two Grandfathers. It's not like I want to do this. These men were all veterans that have served under you and Grandpa, even comrades that had experienced life and death together. However, we cannot risk the lives of the entire Jun family on an uncertainty. If we are not merciless in this present moment, then others will be merciless to us in the future. Third uncle. This is not just one man. Would they all betray the imperial family through in their lot with the Jun family? That is just wishful thinking. If our secrets are exposed and we arouse the imperial family's suspicions, then the several hundred members of the Jun family, the thousands of commoners living in the Jun family's fiefdom, and even the high-ranking military officers serving the Jun family's faction will be guilty by association. That is tens of thousands of lives. As for what to do next, I believe that third uncle should know better than me. Third uncle had once told me what it meant to be part of the younger generation. So why are you so sentimental now? Third uncle, you are now responsible for the lives of the entire Jun family. Don't tell me you will shirk your duty. Jun Moxie's calm analysis was terrifying. His expression was somewhat cruel, and his tone was rather fierce. If that is the case, is it possible that we will have to carry our secret to the grave? Jun Xie frowned. Third uncle, your foresight is lacking. Take a look at the magnificent jewel hall. Jun Moxie chuckled nefariously before leisurely continuing, currently overlooking the whole world. Which emperor dares to move against the magnificent jewel hall? Jun Xie was overwhelmed in shock. It turned out that his nephew had such incredible ambitions. The magnificent jewel hall achieved its current success through the effort of countless generations of people. Yet our Jun family. Jun Xie deeply furrowed his brows. The Jun family has me. It has you. It has Grandpa. Jun Moxie grunted, gently swirling the wine in his cup. The three of us are more than enough. The day will come when our Jun family will be stronger than the magnificent jewel hall. The calm expression on Jun Moxie's face revealed an unsurpassed confidence. Jun Xie dazedly looked at his nephew and suddenly felt a surge of pride well up in his heart. His nephew's words almost convinced him that these events will necessarily happen. He wanted to believe in this future, because if these words came true, then there would be hope for his redemption. Things are different now that your health has returned. Your priority in the coming days will be to all your body to recuperate and to make sure you do not recklessly activate your Xian Qi. Although you have advanced into the Sky Xian realm, your foundation is unstable because you had primarily relied on the medicinal strength of the Blazing Heart Meridian and not bitter cultivation for the breakthrough. I have already instructed the kitchen staff to prepare a specialized medical cuisine for third uncle. For the next 10 days, you can only nurture your Xian Qi in your Dantian and continue until you have gained complete control. No matter what, you absolutely cannot take rash actions. When you are free, just use the power of your body to move a little. Exercise restraint. I think third uncle understands my meaning. Jun Moxie gave Jun Wui a profound look. I believe that third uncle will discover a pleasant surprise in your body after these next 10 days. I have waited for more than 10 years. A mere 10 days is nothing. Jun Wui nodded. The 300 guards have not returned from their training? Jun Moxie asked rather casually as he swirled his cup of wine. After 300 house guards have reached an acceptable level of physical conditioning, Jun Moxie moved forward with the next phase of their death training regimen. The 300 men proceeded to the Heavenly Tribulation Forest to hunt low-level Xian beasts for their Xian cores and pelt. Also, they must obtain 10 more rank 5 Xian beasts. The higher the level, the better. And naturally the better for low-level Xian beasts. Do not return until you have completed the mission. Jun Moxie gave a stern warning before their departure. This training exercise to the Heavenly Tribulation Forest will be left completely in your control, and this includes your lives. I expect that less than half of you will return alive. This is where the path of the strong begins. Failure is not an option. That is the road to the Yellow Springs. Jun Moxie also used this as an opportunity to weed out any spies within these troops. After the troops entered the Heavenly Tribulation Forest, Grandpa Jun's main forces were dispatched to guard their path of retreat. Anyone that turned back was killed without exception. Any birds that flew out from the forest were similarly shot dead. They followed up by entering the forest and killing anyone they suspect were sending out a message. This operation was carried out by Grandpa Jun's secret force of Jade Xian experts, so the outcome was uneventful. 27 men have already been exposed so far. All of them have been summarily executed. No information on this operation had leaked out as of the latest report. Jun Wui appeared exhausted. It did not occur to me that the Jun family had sheltered this many enemy spies. Could it be that my Jun family is easily bullied? Jun Moxie smiled and said, "We can assume that most of the spies have been eliminated given that no messages have been sent out for such a long period of time. I'm not too worried about the remaining men. Anyone that is able to return had earned the right to live." Jun Wui slightly nodded before standing up. He had taken one last look at the wine cup in Jun Moxie's hands before he returned to his courtyard. Jun Moxie sat quietly for a while before he too stood up and left toward his courtyard. The second batch of fine wine ought to be ready at any moment. This batch will be the real deal. A disturbance suddenly broke out in the capital and then subsided. A fast horse galloped post-haste to the main gate of the Jun residence. The rider, who wore a yellow eunuch outfit, was precisely a messenger from the imperial palace. Shortly thereafter, Grandpa Jun hurriedly left the residence and rushed toward the imperial palace. At the same time, the physicians of the imperial palace seemed extremely impatient as they hurried to the Li residence. The Donghua family's pair of father and son similarly dropped everything at hand and rode their fastest horse toward the imperial palace. Members of every major family and cabinet ministers of comparable status continuously rallied in the direction of the imperial palace. In the eyes of the onlookers, a major incident had undoubtedly occurred, an incident capable of shaking the Tianxiang kingdom from top to bottom. As a matter of fact, a major incident indeed happened. The Grand Preceptor and Chancellor of the state, Li Shang, suddenly contracted a grave infirmity and had been unconscious ever since, leaving his life and death uncertain. Grand Preceptor Li was the highest-ranking official in the imperial court in the Tianxiang kingdom. His unanticipated collapse had thrown the imperial court into disorder and confusion. His Majesty the Emperor was furious. Sitting on the imperial throne, he slammed the table with both hands. A perfect healthy civil official cultivates his xian qi behind closed door. But instead of restoring his xian qi, he squandered away what remained of his old life, had long since overseen all aspects of court politics. The entire imperial court has been paralyzed with his collapse today. How can we not grieve under such circumstance? You. After His Majesty said up to this point, he immediately fell silent. He massaged his temple as if to soothe a headache and sighed helplessly. When he had looked up earlier, His Majesty realized that he had done something stupid. Something incredibly stupid. Of the several people below, Jun Xie wore a long face as he stared vacantly ahead at nothing in particular, completely spaced out and apparently did not hear a word. Debauchee was grunting and sighing while using a thick carrot-sized finger to dig at his nostril and nonchalantly flicking his finger from time to time. What kind of demeanor is this? Tang Wanli frowned as he watched Debauchee from the corner of his eyes. His lip trembled, and he angrily cursed in his heart from having to frequently dodge errant balls of snot. Tang Wanli looked disdainfully at the Meng family and arrogantly at the Li family, but he did not dare to show his discontent against the big boss. Even if he dared to curse in his heart. The master of the Meng family had a serious and solemn appearance, sitting quietly without looking sideways as if in meditation. Murong Fengyan's back leaned against main hall pillar. Something that looked suspiciously like saliva appeared on his white beard. The old fool from the Song family had his head drooped down as if he was trying to figure out if he can insert his head in the crotch of his trouser. His Majesty suddenly woke up from his daze and wished he could give himself 2 slaps. Would expressing my anger mean anything to these old bags of bones? Was that any different than casting pearls before a swine? Was it even worth a fart? Eventually, he impatiently waved his hand. Leave. Everyone leave. It was our mistake. We were wrong to inconvenience esteemed elders such as yourselves. Just leave and quickly go back home to your beds since you all seem too tired to be here. As if waking from a dream, the old men started blaming each other and then proceeded to thank His Majesty as they made their exit. Debauchee was just about to leave before he turned back and kicked Murong Fengyan's body with a bang. Wake up. Go home to sleep. Murong Fengyan mumbled incoherently, sleepy eyes unclear before loosely standing up, seemingly at a loss for what to do. Your Majesty, this old official is guilty. This official must be going senile from old age to actually fall asleep in your Majesty's palace. This. Get out of our sight. Go back home to sell rice cakes. The Emperor's bellow frightened the many court officials waiting in the side chamber. The old men all appeared to be battered, exhausted and even scared witless as they exited the main hall. However, once they left the imperial palace, these crafty old men looked at each other with evil smiles before parting ways and leaving abruptly. His Majesty's thunderous bellow that shook the heaven had already echoed from the palace. Jun, you old fool. Stand right there. Jun Xie had only taken a few steps and was just about to mount his horse when he heard someone calling his name behind him. When he turned around, he saw the dark expression on Debauchee as the latter charged over. You want a beating? Jun Xie furrowed his white brows. You got some balls, you little shit, to have the audacity to bark like a dog in front of me. Your father. I'll turn you inside out, you old monkey. Fuck you. Who do you think you are? When did I bark like a dog? Debauchee snorted. I need to help you teach that grandson of yours a lesson. I'm going to beat him until his skin peels off. What do you have to say for yourself? What? What did you say? Jun Xie was about to turn and leave, but his eyes flashed like lightning when he heard what was said. You want, on my behalf, berate my grand son? His voice continued to get louder with each word as a blue aura dramatically exploded out from his body, causing a tyrannical pressure to emanate out. His blood orchid cloak fluttered wildly. The old man was obviously infuriated. There are very few people in the capital that have the courage to stand face to face against Jun Xie in this kind of situation. But those few people are precisely from the Dugu family, Dugu Wudi, Dugu Xiao Yi, and the one standing before him, Dugu Zongheng. And Dugu Zongheng is a person that always followed through with what he said. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 109. Trouble has arrived. Dugu Zongheng suddenly felt like he was suffocating as the surrounding air completely stopped flowing. In front of him, Jun Xie was currently giving off an enormous pressure. He never imagined that Jun Xie would make such face-over for his waste of a grandson. Oomph! He opened his eyes wide as an aura erupted from his body to counter the overbearing pressure exuded by Jun Xie, not moving back even half an inch. Are you going to treat that trash like some treasure? D***it. If I, your father, want to teach him a lesson, then consider it your grandson's good fortune. Tui. Jun Xie looked at him with a stern expression. Dugu Zongheng, what did my grandson do to offend you? You actually had to personally get involved? You must give me an explanation for this. Dugu Zongheng snorted. I wouldn't care if he had only offended me. I've always been a magnanimous old man. I just consider it as childish nonsense. At most I'd just smack his butt once and let him go. But the one thing your grandson really should not have done was to tease my baby Xiao Yi. And that little shit was brazen enough to do it. I'm telling you, Jun Xie, that your grandson is lucky that nothing has happened yet. But if something were to happen, I'm afraid that you won't even be able to find your grandson's corpse when I'm done with him. If there is even one hair missing on Mo Xia, Dugu Zongheng, I can guarantee that your Dugu family will regret it forever. Jun Xie glared at him with a dark expression for a long time before he spoke up. If anything happens to my family's Xiao Yi, Jun Xie, I can promise that your Jun family will be worse off than my Dugu family. Dugu Zongheng said coldly. He did not intend to back down and stared back at Jun Xie. The two military big shots were standing toe to toe outside the imperial palace. Two pairs of perfectly round eyes glared at each other as if a fight will break out at any moment. The two families' personal guards were all sweating profusely as they milled about in desperation and at a complete loss as to what to do. Not even the emperor himself will be able to stop them if these two begin to fight. Right at this moment, I was just asking myself who was causing such a ruckus. And it turned out to be you two geezers fooling around. The sound of Tang Wanli's candid laughter rose up. Don't you two feel ashamed? Both of your ages add up to 156 years old. Look at you two. As people with one foot in the grave. Are you not afraid that you will be laughed at by the younger generation? Tang Wanli carried himself haughtily. You two really lack elegance compared to me. The two old men standing opposite one another simultaneously spit in contempt. The clouds all over the sky instantly dissipated. Jun Xie snorted coldly. He looked at Tang Wanli and Dugu Zongheng with an expressionless face. And, without saying a word, turned around and left. It's already too late for you to go back. Dugu Zongheng snorted twice. My 7 grandsons have already arrived at your residence by now. Old man, you had better buy some ointments on your way home to treat your grandson's injuries. Duga Zongheng was laughing heartily but was actually regretting quite a bit in his heart. Who would have thought that Jun Xie cared so much about his thoroughly disappointing wastrel of a grandson? If his 7 grandchildren had senselessly beaten up the brat, what is to be done? Those 7 youngsters had always treated Dugu Xiao Yi like a precious treasure. They had all been in an uproar once they heard about what happened to their sister and had swarmed around pushing and shouting to get out of the house. After that, he had received news of Li Shang's accident and had to make haste to the imperial palace. Although he had only left instructions to capture Jun Moxie before he left, it is very likely that the latter would suffer grievously at the hands of his grandsons. Jun Xie abruptly stopped and leaped up not to mount his horse, but directly circulated his xian qi and disappeared in a flash of blue light. From midair, a bellow echoed out. Dugu Zongheng, I'm not finished with you yet. It's already too late for regrets. Grandpa Jun was absolutely livid and had unexpectedly burst out in a storm of obscene language. Old Dugu, why are you pissing old Jun off? To go as far as to be at daggers drawn? Tang Wanli was just watching curiously from the sideline without any idea what was going on. Dugu Zongheng had a belly full of anger. Upon having heard what was said, his eyes flashed as he cursed. Fuck off, motherfucker. It's none of your fucking business. Swish. He swiftly mounted his horse and left. His words had caused Tang Wanli to look as though he would choke from anger. It had taken a long time before his boiling anger was able to calm down a little, his fingers still shaking uncontrollably. If it weren't for me, you two would already have come to blows. I had intervened out of the goodness of my heart, but unexpectedly blew up on me. Just remembering how one had ignored him and the other had not appreciated his kindness, Tang Wanli's white beard trembled and felt like he had been slapped in the face. I'll eat a hat if I try to be nice again. He suddenly went all out and angrily roared. I am a dumbass son of a b*tch. The sound of his voice shook like thunder and echoed into the distance. The old men from the major families who still had not left yet all stumbled at the same time. This sounded like the voice of that old geezer Tang Wanli. What the hell is he doing now? Has he gone mad to unexpectedly declare to the world that he is a dumbass son of a b*tch? Don't tell me that he got his head kicked in by his horse. Their curiosity was growing and all of them thought that it would be a pity not to look. An opportunity like this only knocks but once. The old men talked it over and all decided to head to the Tang family full of expectations, each one faster than the last as if competing with one another. The lethargy from earlier in the imperial court had already disappeared without a trace. Even able-bodied young men would not be able to compete with their current ferocity. If this scene was beheld by the emperor, he might just be so angry that he would vomit blood. Jun family. Still not aware of the impending disaster, Jun Moxie directed a few strong women to carry several large jugs of water. After casually inspecting the transparent, pale yellow foreshot that was collected from the filtration apparatus he designed, he slowly filled up each and every water jug. Jun Moxie was bursting with joy as he breathed in the rich wine fragrance wafting in the air. He was still able to pick up the distinct smell of the wine lees. Jun Moxie was never fond of drinking strong alcoholic drinks. The sole purpose of distilling this batch of wine was to exchange it for a very large sum of money. With his current understanding of what this world considered as wine, he was confident that he would be able to sell each jug for 10,000 taels of silver. Of course, it wasn't just for money. It was also to let these country bumpkins experience what wine really tasted like. Chinese wine. The wine that I don't approve of is trash, and only wine that I approve of can be considered good wine. And the price will be 10,000 taels of silver for each jug. I won't lower the price even if my whole family is beheaded. D***it. You really had the decency to say you have lived without having tasted my wine? Why don't you just wipe your neck clean and end your miserable life? In fact, Jun Moxie's actual goal was to sell off this batch and not sell anymore. Then, he would only vinify 10 or 20 bottles each month, just enough for his family to drink. As for other people, humph, even if the emperor wants to drink, young Master Jun will only stick out his neck. If I said there's none for sale, then there's none for sale. What can you do? I'll first make you all addicted, and then I'll cut off the supply. I, your father, will not sell any more wine. Then, when all of you are left with no choice but to return to drinking that garbage, it would be hard not to choke on tears. Jun Moxie was looking forward to this moment. The facial expression of these wealthy nobles will be priceless. Just thinking about it already warmed his heart. Your father will wait for your wonderful gift. Jun Moxie hummed a little tune. The expression on his face could no longer be that of an evil monarch, but rather that of an evil god. He had to admit that the person who had originally thought of this insidious idea really was evil to the utmost degree. A booming explosion rocked the main gate and echoed into the distance, interrupting Jun Moxie's devious thoughts and surprising him. Could someone actually be so foolhardy as to cause a disturbance at the Jun residence in broad daylight? Isn't this too ridiculous? Before he can gather his thoughts, the main gate exploded open. Shortly, he heard the sound of heavy footsteps storming toward his direction aggressively. Pang! The gate to his courtyard splintered into pieces as a loud voice roared. Jun Moxie, get your ass over here right now. Doesn't this scene look as if the criminal underworld had come to get him? For a brief moment, Jun Moxie thought that he had transmigrated back. Thud! Thud! Jun Moxie stretched his head to take a peek and saw 7 Herculean figures that looked more like bears than men. Each one had a sinister countenance, swinging their arms as they stormed in like a gale of wind. Saving a life is more praiseworthy than building the 7-tiered pagoda. Is the 7-tiered pagoda as thick as these 7 individuals? The legends did say that Buddha was also a pagoda. Jun Moxie immediately gave out orders. You, go find third uncle and tell him that he must not come over. Just leave everything to me and I'll take care of it. You, go find sister-in-law, and tell her that she don't need to come over. Jun Moxie's only worry was that Jun Wui would be unable to resist coming over. It really is rotten luck. Although Jun Wui's present strength has advanced to the Sky Xian realm, the Xian Qi in his body is still too unstable and was not completely under his control. If he does not take his time to stabilize the Xian Qi and rashly misuse it, it will definitely rupture all of his meridians, and his situation will become a truly hopeless. As for Guan Qinghan, she's still too young and her experience is shallow. She wouldn't be of any help if she came over. Jun Moxie saw with a glance that Guan Qinghan could only handle one of these 7 individuals at most and would lose against their numbers in the end. Grandpa went to the imperial palace, and there weren't any servants at home who would be able to challenge these 7 devils in human form. Besides, every major family had a mutual understanding that the elders would not intervene in the matters between the younger generations, so they have free rein to torment anyone. It seemed like he could only rely on himself to single-handedly go into battle. Jun Moxie naturally recognized them. Duke families, heroes and legends bravely rushing forward, were prominent personages in Tianxiang City. Their reputations far exceed that of Jun Moxie. Although they aren't at the level of being friends, they are at least acquaintances. Jun Xie was currently hesitating, but not because he was worried about getting abused by these 7 black bears. Rather, he had a headache. How would the Donghua family react if I accidentally killed these 7 people? This question was driving him insane. Would the Jun family be able to withstand the repercussion? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 110. Heroes and Legends bravely rushing forward. Other than being slightly older and somewhat naive, these guys fundamentally had an upstanding moral character. They were like a septuplet of calla lilies. Each and every one had a large stature, a fierce leopard-like face, and a thick tiger-like beard on both cheeks. The 7 brothers almost looked a bit like a bunch of rectangles on the ground. Holy cow! What did they feed these guys? This whole family was like the spitting image of Zhang Fei. None of them would need to put on makeup if they were auditioning for a modern reenactment of the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. More authentic than the real thing, and manlier than Zhang Fei himself. Jun Xie suddenly had a frightening epiphany in his heart. It must have been tough for the Donghua family's 3 brothers. How could they so perfectly coordinate the births of such virtuous sons? What kind of talent was this? Jun Xie. Where are you running to, you little brat? Donghua Ying's sharp eyes discovered Jun Xie with a glance and roared out like thunder. His 6 brothers behind him displayed uncanny coordination and simultaneously shouted. Jun Xie. Where are you running to, you little brat? This scene was like a thunderclap from the 9th heaven, striking fear into the heart of men. Even the plants and flowers inside the courtyard repeatedly trembled in fright. At this moment, Jun Moxie praised in his heart for the mysterious ways in which the gods work. The universe really was extraordinary. Everything before his eyes suddenly grew dark. The 7 looming faces were as black as the bottom of a frying pan, and their 14 malicious-looking eyeballs opened perfectly round to glare down on Jun Xie. Even the shortest brother was taller than Jun Xie by half a head. People who didn't know might think that young Master Jun owed these men a lot of money. Snow White and the 7 Dwarves had been a popular children's fairy tale in the past. Today I will reveal the behind-the-scenes to the amazing tale of Jun Xie and the 7 Giants. As Jun Xie let his mind wander, he took a step back and to look the 7 brothers in their eyes. He didn't have a choice. If he did not step back, he would have to stare straight up to look them. He wore a pleasant smile on his face and said, "If it isn't the 7 elder Donghua brothers. I'm sorry for not recognizing you sooner. Excuse me. I'll go and find someone to prepare tea. Don't even think about slipping away. You're still too wet behind the ears to pull that kind of trick in front of me." Donghua Ying's face turned savage as he clenched his fists and cracked his knuckles. Jun Xie. You've certainly grown a pair. Unexpectedly daring to bully my little sister. Gutsy. Watch if I don't beat your pretty boy face into a dried persimmon. What? Bullied your little sister? Donghua Xiao. Who started this rumor? Jun Xie scratched his head as he said in a somewhat bewildered manner. He was not putting up an act. I have always been the one being abused. When did this turn on its head? How come I never knew? He was already well accustomed to the Donghua family's unreasonable way of speaking. It was your little sister that bullied me every day. How can you distort the truth like this? I haven't even aired out my grievances against you people, yet the guilty party is now blaming the victim? That's just ridiculous. Is there anyone in this world who would dare to bully that little girl Donghua Xiao with the tyrannical Donghua family behind her? That will happen when pigs fly. Don't you dare deny it. trying to wriggle out of responsibility after doing the deed. The nearby debauchee said with a booming voice. But he fell silent halfway through the sentence and suddenly looked up with a puzzled expression. His two large nostrils rapidly sucked in 2 deep breaths before he blinked several times and stared out in astonishment. What is that aroma? How could it smell so fragrant? It's incredible. The other 6 truly deserved to be called brothers, as they all felt that something was off at almost the same time. The aroma was too tantalizing. They had all lost themselves in the moment and had only awakened when debauchee spoke out. Completely disregarding Jun Moxie, they sniffed the air to try and find the source of the aroma. 7 pairs of nostrils were inhaling so violently that they had literally created a vacuum in the surrounding area. Jun Moxie suddenly felt as if he was suffocating, almost as if there was not enough oxygen present. What kind of monstrous lung capacity is this? It smells incredible. Reminds me of really good wine. Debauchee closed his eyes and sniffed with a look of certainty on his face. Nonsense. How can there be wine this fragrant? I already feel a little drunk. Debauchee still had his head raised up to the heaven with an intoxicated look on his face. This isn't just wine, but the wine of gods. Debauchee had the bearing of an expert, swaying his head as if inebriated. K, your old man. What wine of gods? Just move to the side, you amateur. Debauchee mocked vehemently. My old man is your father. You still want him to go K himself? Debauchee's face turned beet red as he snapped. Could this be bewildering gas? Even as the words escaped Debauchee's mouth, his nose was still violently inhaling the air. Even if this was bewildering gas, your little brother is willing to become bewildered every day. Heaven, please let me be bewildered forever. What would I do if this fragrance goes away? Debauchee looked as if he was drunk. He was breathing the hardest and loudest among 7 brothers. You're all pathetic. Debauchee was extremely reproachful of his 6 older brothers' conduct and chided disparagingly while he appeared entranced himself. The 7 of them were all facing the sky with their eyes closed, wildly sniffing to and fro, and haven't paid the least bit of attention to the 10 extremely conspicuous wine jugs arranged not even 1 zhang in front of them. The glistening yellow wine inside was releasing an intoxicating fragrance and directly sucked into their nostrils. Jun Moxie was stupefied. I can't believe people like this actually exist, 7 of them. No less. Nature is incredible, he couldn't bear it any longer and coughed loudly. It was only after hearing the coughing that they finally recovered their senses. The 7 brothers looked slightly embarrassed as they opened their eyes. Seeing Jun Moxie in front of them, they immediately remembered their mission to grab this little brat and hand him over to their grandfather. Not a moment to spare. The 7 men suddenly stomped their feet, 14 eyeballs simultaneously fixated on their target. At some time unbeknownst to them, a table had appeared out of nowhere with Jun Moxie was calmly sitting beside it, completely without a care in the world. In his hand was a transparent, white jade wine cup, filled to the brim with an aromatic, pale yellow liquid. With his eyes closed, he slowly brought the cup up to his mouth and gently took a small sip. An infatuated expression gradually appeared on his face as he let out a sigh of satisfaction, following which he used an orgasmic moan-like voice to sing out. Delicious wine, ah, that liquid was wine. But how can wine be so clear and transparent? How can there be wine in this world that produces such an intoxicating aroma? Big brother, is that really wine? Debauchee swallowed his saliva. It smells K good. No kidding. If not wine, then what? Vinegar? Does vinegar at home smell like this? This wine is extraordinary. But how is it possible that I have never seen such exquisite wine before? A stream of saliva was flowing out of Donghwa's mouth and steadily dripping onto the floor. But he did not miss his chance to ridicule him back. Let alone see. I've never even heard of wine like this. I want to get a taste. Donghwa wiped his mouth with his sleeve. And only patted his lips twice. But his sleeve became completely drenched. You don't say. Who wouldn't want to try some? The other 6 brothers said mockingly at the same time. Jun Moxie. After an earth-shattering roar, Donghua immediately lowered his voice such that it even became somewhat tender. What is that in your hand? It was hard to imagine that such a manly man that resembles Zhang Fei was capable of making this gentle and soft sound. I don't understand your question. It's a wine cup. What else could it be? Jun Moxie mindlessly swirled the wine cup, causing a few drops to spill out. For a split second after the wine spilt on the floor, the rich aroma became even stronger by at least 1-fold. 7 pairs of eyes bulged out at the same time as they lowered their heads and stared at the damp spot on the floor, flames erupting in their eyes. Wasting this unprecedented, never before seen, priceless fine wine in this way is practically a cardinal sin. This cannot be tolerated. Even if Uncle can endure, I cannot, we cannot endure. I knew it was a wine cup. I wanted to ask you, what is in the wine cup? Donghua held back the low growl in his throat. This is my home. I can put whatever I want in this wine cup. It could be vinegar or it could be soy sauce. Jun Moxie did not bat an eye, just crossed his legs, and leisurely continued. Naturally, it can also be wine. He took another sip from the wine cup when he arrived at this point, clicking his tongue twice, then suddenly opened his eyes as if waking up from a dream. Oh, that's right. What are you all doing here? Hurry up and tell me. If it isn't important, then you may leave whenever you please. The Donghua brothers' line of sight never left Jun Moxie's hands. Every time the latter swirled his cup, their hearts cried out for fear that even more of this priceless wine would spill out. This is recklessly wasting a gift from the gods. We received orders to come and grab you. Donghua responded without thinking. But before he could finish, Donghua had ferociously stomped down on his foot, causing him to jump up and down from the pain. We received orders to come and invite young Master Jun to our residence for a chat in order to promote the deep friendship between the Jun and Donghua families. Donghua put in great effort to present an elegant appearance, being overly pedantic with his wording, and nodding his head priggishly as he spoke, unconsciously flinging saliva everywhere from the corners of his mouth, causing Jun Moxie to have no choice but to use his hand to cover the cup of wine. The nearby Donghua caught on rather quickly and drew back the corners of their mouth into a big grin. He was just about to speak but was unable to talk due to the saliva in his mouth. Only after swallowing his saliva was he able to say, "Exactly. That was my grandfather's intention. Our two families' relationship could be considered to be deep. There's no need to make distinctions between what's ours and what's yours. The best things in life are meant to be shared." Ha ha ha. The remaining 6 people nodded in concert. 6 large smiles broke out on their faces. Ha! Lord Donghua is too polite. Jun Moxie had an impatient expression on his face as his hand accidentally knocked the cup over and spilled the wine. This foreshot has not been diluted, so its alcoholic content was too high. Jun Moxie naturally was not willing to drink it. It's not like it was anything special to him anyway. He swiftly stood up and said, "In that case, let us be on our way so that Lord Donghua would not have to wait too long." Careful. The seven brothers watched as Jun Moxie had unexpectedly spilled a big cup of priceless fine wine and had simultaneously opened their mouths in protest. Jun Moxie's voice got slower and more dragged out. Ha 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 ha. The seven brothers all gave a hollow laugh. Duguing said he wiped the saliva from his chin. Young Master Jun. Given the close relationship between our two families, we brothers have a humble request of your grace. Is it possible that we can have a small taste of your wine? Jun Moxie had a begrudging look on his face as he shook his head like a rattledrum. That's out of the question. I don't have much myself. This is a priceless fine wine that has never been seen before. Just a drop is already too strong. Even I had to take my time to savor this drop that is worth its weight in gold. He swiftly pointed and added with a regretful tone. I only have these jugs left. Once they are finished, there will be no more. This is a critical situation. As the seven brothers' gaze finally rested upon what he was pointing at, they suddenly couldn't look away. This story will be continued to chapter 111. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.